Good morning, everybody. We'll start in just a moment.
Okay.
Good morning. Is Frank on? Uh, Brian, what the treasuries are dropping, huh? The yields?
They are. It's a good thing. It's mainly because of the inflation report this week wasn't as bad as what everyone thought it was going to be. So that was good.
Fantastic. So what does that mean for us with rates?
Well, rates, they are definitely more favorable than what they were last week. They were significantly, I would say, maybe 7.25 last week. They're about 6.99 for conventional financing. FHA is in the low sixes, around 6.25. One thing I did want to add to that is that, when you're dealing with your buyers and they are dealing with a mortgage rate rep, make sure they're dealing with a seasoned and knowledgeable professional. There are lots of programs out there that allow us to provide more favorable financing if we sort of structure the loan in a certain way. What I mean by that is a lot of these first-time home buyers and programs that are for repeat buyers that fall under the income restricted guidelines. So for example, in New Jersey, that's about 130,000, 135,000 or so, give or take, in some of these counties. Now, it will vary from county to county and obviously state. But for example, if there's a married couple and they're both buying a house and there's significant income there, we don't need both incomes. We're going to be able to structure the loan a little smarter, keep it under those income restricted guidelines, and that's going to allow us to eliminate a lot of those rate adjusters that make the rate higher. So you're not going to get this kind of guidance with like that call center atmosphere. So make sure your buyers are treated right. They know what they're doing. If you guys have any questions on anything like this, let me know. I can definitely, fill you in on the secrets behind the curtain,
And are you seeing many clients qualifying for any type of a grant opportunity or?
Did you say grant?
Yeah, grants or like subsidized state or local programs?
Yeah, all the time. A lot of these people, we can structure it. A lot of these, again, in New Jersey, I don't know what it is in Florida or Arizona, but there's grant programs, $10,000 to $22,000 for first-time home buyers. It's 10 to 15,000 depending on the county. Can go up another 7,000 for the first generation first-time home buyer programs. I closed one not too long ago. I think the woman had to show up at the closing with $300. Yeah.
What does first generation mean?
First generation means that your parents or grandparents have not owned a home.
I've never heard that.
I don't really know how far they look into this, but I typically will just ask them if you have anyone in your family owned a home, and if they're saying no, then no. And if you were in foster care, which is another one I did, I found out the kid was in foster care, and that allows them to qualify for the additional 7,000 as well.
Very good. Well, I appreciate that. We'll take any adjustment in rates, but we're not going to let that influence our outcome.
Right.
So today I want to talk about there's not that many objections in this business. Sometimes we make things bigger than they are. And a lot of this information is borrowed from Mike Ferry. So any Ferryites here, this will be a reinforcement. But I ask you this, are you passionately and aggressively pursuing your income and transaction goals? Or are you just going through the motions for 2025? Okay. I have here free download from the Mike Ferry organization. And Mike is a pretty interesting guy. He says, all right, everybody always wants to change the scripts. Everybody always wants to, manipulate it, be creative, but don't. Okay. And I kind of agree with him. The guardrails are pretty straightforward. Handling objections is a simple but not easy process. Don't complicate it. Work to understand the logic behind objection handlers. The client will only believe you when you believe you. In between the strength of your appointment to show you as the obvious choice. Okay. Simple things like, being agreeable, smiling, nodding your head, and not arguing are keystones to success. In one of the podcasts, somebody talked about, hey, can you ever win an argument with a seller? And I posed that to the group. Can you win an argument with a seller? Or maybe even a buyer for that matter.
So,
Anybody?
First of all, I would contend that you're not going to have arguments with your client. You're going to have discussions, and maybe you're going to have different points of view. And I think a discussion framed that way can certainly come out with a positive outcome.
Very astute answer, and I think some of the industry is aggressive and maybe argumentative. But Pavla, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I was gonna say you can win the argument, but most likely you will not get the sale.
Yeah. You must be a student, Mike. You can win the argument, but you won't get the listing or you won't get the sale. So
So
I just
make your decision. What's more important for you?
right, and it's not even about having to agree and lie. It's about not engaging in an argument. It's about educating, and in my opinion, it's about educating through questions rather than statements. Okay, great salespeople ask more questions. Great salespeople ask better questions. Okay. So here's some objection handling basics. And I don't mean to be, coy about it, but if somebody's giving an objection, smile, nod your head, repeat the objection. You can even be in an approving mannerism. Then ask a question, ask another question, and then go for the close instead of going for the argument. Okay. Your success in objection handling is often found by pre-qualifying the seller in depth, memorizing, rehearsing, and most importantly, internalizing how you're going to communicate. Okay, memorizing, rehearsing, and internalizing. So it goes back to nobody's going to believe you unless you really believe you. Okay. I want to, this is another borrowed stat from the Mike Ferry organization, which is only 5% of agents are passionately and aggressively pursuing listings as a majority of their time. Okay, and a majority of their time is 60 to 70% of your time. So in all markets, as you mature, listings are the way to go. When you're working with buyers, it's very, very difficult to scale. Is there anybody that has transitioned substantially or almost exclusively to listings that wants to share that with our younger audience?
So I have always been taught over my career, when you list, you last. If you have listings, you constantly have something to share, to market, to sell. So if you're a team leader, your entire team has something to market and present, to sell to any of their buyers or anybody in their sphere. And I think, when you plan out your day to day in your life and you have a family and you have other interests and other things going on, it's a lot easier to figure out how to manage listings. Not every single listing gets shown by the selling agent. We have Supra and lockboxes for a reason. And it's a lot easier to plan your day-to-day when you have listings. I think a lot of younger agents end up feeling like they're tour guides and kind of get taken for a ride. But if you have listings, you have to be a lot more prepared to talk about the area, to talk about the schools, to talk about temples and churches and different things in the community. And it just makes you a better realtor, so that when you do have a buyer, it should be very easy in comparison to what they're going through right now.
Takes a lot of time, when you're a new agent, you have to experience the letdowns and the victories. That's what makes you better. But it does take meeting with other agents that are successful in your office and learn through them. Unfortunately, Rob has this platform that we're all on, which helps a lot of the new agents. But yes, you said the magic words, list to laugh.
Right. So I think in my observation from, walking around, from helping, from coaching, I would agree with this statement that the industry probably has 5% of the agents that passionately and aggressively pursue listings a majority of their time, which means intentionally. Okay. What percentage of your business will be listings in the coming year?
70%.
I'm sorry?
About 70%.
Okay.
I would say even higher. I'd say 80%.
It all depends on how each person goes after or gets their business. As somebody that has a very high referral business, I will get buyer referrals from other RE/MAX agents or other agents or past clients. But how I spend my time, it's going after the listings, it's going on appointments, setting appointments, closing appointments. And for that, that's a healthy 70-30 is pretty healthy. Everybody is in a different market, but I think that's a good number.
Listen to this. He who controls the listing controls the sale. And whoever has a listing, you have the whole MLS on your payroll. Remember that they're all there working for you.
So, if you're new or you're not convinced on, intentionally pursuing more listing business, it's time to invest in yourself. It's time to hone those skills, hone that confidence. Let's see. I mean, a lack of self-improvement causes self-doubt. There are really 3 things that we can control: our actions, our reactions, and our mindset. Okay. So what percentage of your time is spent on listing properties? And I'm going to outline some things that maybe weren't so intuitive to me until I did my kind of consolidating of thoughts. What's the most obvious thing for pursuing listing business? Prospecting, right? Having some mechanism of prospecting.
Business and expires.
Okay.
Now business.
All right. So, and Ron, all of those go into that bucket of prospecting, right?
Yep.
Circle prospecting, door knocking, all these activities are prospecting. These are the obvious choice. Probably the second item that's necessary for a prosperous listing business in 2025 is dedicating time for lead follow-up. Okay. And I'd say you need to have ferocious and aggressive lead follow-up skills, because if you don't, you're going to kick yourself when you see that property list. Okay. Number 3 is constant skill building. Okay. With technology, MLS changes, all the different resources that we have, a listing appointment could be 3 hours, but it should be 30 minutes. A listing appointment could be 3 hours, but it more likely should be 30 minutes. And the reason why you get that appointment success in 30 minutes is by skills building. Okay. Confidence, controlling the pace, the cadence of that appointment for the most positive outcome. perfecting the appointment process. Okay, I would ask you all to look at your listing opportunities, your appointments. Are they random or are they consistent? And a critique, and this might be taken the wrong way, critique I'm going to put forth is sometimes we over rapport build, right? We talk our way out of a successful process, or we extend the process to put up more opportunities for objections. Does anybody know what my saying TKAD stands for?
Time kills all deals.
Right, so that can be more macro, is if you're, buying a business, buying a house, if you have an extended closing time, there are more things that can happen along the way, right? Whereas if you have a closing that's in, 11 days and everybody's hustling to get it done, there may be a little bit of extra stress, but that timing is not going to influence the outcome. Think of a listing appointment as allowing time to kill opportunities, or time to kill transactions, or time to kill deals, right? Do you think that sometimes you've ever, been talking about things, kids in, the same soccer camp, or you have the same dog or something like that, where you feel like it's going well, but you're kind of taking yourself off the professionalism and the mission of the appointment?
I think certain things happen. The more listing appointments you go on, the more business you close, the better you get at understanding what the goal is. It's not just to sign it, but to make them realize, like, you're helping them, you're advising them, but you have other clients, you have another appointment to get to. You appreciate their time, they appreciate you, but you're the professional. You got to get going. You can easily, like you say, instead of 30 minutes, spend 3 hours. Now it's different than a 3-hour dinner with them past, after the sale, or while you're building that rapport. But when you're just trying to sign the listing, you have to be efficient. And those efficiencies, those skills, those mirroring their conversation and their body language, all that happens with the more, I believe, with the more experience you have. I think for any newer agent on the call, it's so important to go out on a listing appointment, or a few, with their team leader, or to find somebody that would take them out and show them the difference between signing a listing and signing it correctly with terms that work for them, that will help them and get them on their way to a successful closing.
Yep. So, I just put that out there because sometimes it's comfortable, to have those commonality conversations, but it's not impactful, or it doesn't add any value to the process that you're going through. Okay. So perfecting and controlling the appointment process, the timing and everything. Okay, doesn't mean we need to be a robot, but there has to be, like, benchmarks that we're looking to achieve. Pre-qualifying sellers. Okay, if we don't pre-qualify sellers like we do buyers, you can go on, listing appointments which have no prospect for success. In other words, they're not going to list with you that time. And maybe these people, maybe the clients are not clients that are consistent with the services and the value you provide. So I'd say, pre-qualifying sellers. There may be somewhat of a lost art of previewing properties because of technology. So if you're a Uber local specialist, you probably really want to know what's going on in your core markets. And even if you don't have buyers, you probably do want to be more proactive in pre-qualifying or previewing properties. And then probably the thing that puts the biggest smile on my face is understanding statistics, okay, and selling through math, selling through numbers. Because at the end of the day, you get a number on the bottom of a check or an ACH from the sale of your property. You don't get an emotion, you don't get an emoji. It's all about math. So time and money and stress.
You know, Rob, I see a lot of agents that don't really prepare correctly for the listing appointment too. You know, they show up and they don't really have the proper comps. And really, at the end of the day, either the husband or the wife, they really are looking for your confidence in a number, one that you should list and one that you're gonna sell at. And I think agents have to find a better solution to finding comps and learning how to do a proper CMA. Sometimes a lot of the things we go over, it goes back to the basics, and there's usually one of two spouses that are just looking for that agent to show up with confidence, tell them the number. And a lot of these sellers, some of them like a little bit of an Excel spreadsheet. Most agents don't know how to use Excel. So I think like just working on your craft and being a better version of yourself will go a long way.
So kind of tied to that too is I had a conversation with a prospective seller on the phone prior to our appointment, and I knew that from that conversation that he had a much higher selling price in his mind than I anticipated. But I didn't let that stop me. I went and figured I had to do something unusual to really get their attention and get them to listen. And so that when we sat down at the table, he said to me, would you like something to drink? And I just looked at him and said, you know, I don't think I'm going to be here long enough to drink it. And they all kind of looked at me and laughed a little bit. And I said, look, you know, we had that early conversation about pricing. I want to show you why I think that, you know, we're in two different ballparks and what we should do. And they both responded positively because I think they had the same tension feeling, knowing that I wasn't going to be where they wanted to be. And it was just a little joke that eased the tension.
So, so that was able to get them to be more realistic in the appointment.
Yes.
So that's part of, let me use my language correctly. That's part of perfecting the appointment process, right? Because
Mhm.
you know how you're going to address, you know, any challenges that would prohibit you from delivering the service that you're committed to do, right? From fulfilling your moral obligation to helping the sellers. Because it's easy to tell a little white lie than it is to push for the truth. So thank you for sharing that, Robert. I'm going to ask this, and if you want to just unmute yourself and just kind of shout out, how many active permanent sources of finding listings should you have or do you have? Okay, most agents, you know, have one or two. Usually number one is wait for their past clients or their clients and their sphere to reach out to them because they need to sell. That is a strategy, but not a predictable, or in my opinion, successful one. What other strategies are we using?
So there's programs like Fellow, there's programs like Remax First, there's programs out there that help you gauge who in your sphere or who in your database are most likely willing to list and sell sooner than later. I don't think enough people invest in those programs. Also, I don't think enough people have enough relationships with other agents to, you know, half of my listings come from other agents referring their clients that have property. A lot of them are second homes in Florida. But you should, just like everybody tells you, you should have multiple sources of income. You know, you should have multiple sources of listings coming into you, because if one falls off, you have 3 or 4 more.
So I see that's Mr. Pilot Jeff Bretzer, who specializes in a particular segment of the industry, right? That's a source for getting
Yeah, I think
listings,
so.
right?
Yeah. We have another agent on our
Hold
school.
on.
You guys need,
Let me just mute everybody.
Oh,
oh shoot, sorry.
Jeff, are you able to just share for 30 seconds your specialty? You're on mute.
Yeah, sure.
You're good.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've been flying practically my whole life. Spent 33 years with the airlines, retired from United Airlines not too long ago. And a few years before I retired, I decided I was going to need something to do after retirement. So I got my real estate license, and I kind of gravitated toward the niche of aviation and air park properties, and have been fairly successful in that. Reason being is a lot of there's realtors out there that are getting into aviation properties, and they're really kind of getting out of their lane because they understand nothing about the main purpose of someone buying an air park home, and that's to find a place to operate their aircraft out of. And if they don't know about airplanes or can't talk to their clients about aviation, they're already way behind the power curve. And they'll end up showing clients that have maybe some type of high performance twin engine airplane. They might show them a property that has a 2,000-foot grass runway, which is totally inappropriate. Or they may have a Piper Cub and they show them something with a 5,000-foot paved runway, which is just as inappropriate the other way.
So basically,
it
Jeff,
works really.
I mean, you have a very specialized niche in the business, and it's clear to everyone on this call that you're passionate about it, and you probably even enjoy it, but you don't need to admit that here. You know, and then I know David Haller is, you know, a master at getting incoming referrals through networking. There is an agent that I know who started out in Florida, and what they did is they actually networked and advertised with old-fashioned newspaper in areas where people are moving towards, and the agents there, and they're going to be probably $10 million, I think, at the end of last year, in their second year in the business, primarily listings coming from the Northeast to Southwest Florida. So there are all these type of niches. I'm going to just go through a couple of ones that I wrote down. You know, expireds, FSBOs, probates, a circle of influence, sphere of influence. You know, just listed, just sold, circle prospecting, physical farms, mailing farms. So all of these things are legs to your listing business. I think you should be intentional about, you know, where you're going to get your listings from. And if it's, you know, one or two, you're probably going to have an inconsistent business. If it's 3 to 5, you're probably going to be consistent, and you'll be able to analyze and maybe switch out the lower performing 1 or 2 and substitute it with something else. I see Alex is on with his hand raised. Did you have a comment, sir? You're muted.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it. So just a thought, and this is the way that I've always thought of listings, is I feel that most listings are hiding behind buyers. What I mean by that is when you have lots of buyers coming to open houses, or they're signing up on your website to get other listing searches started, I find that there's a lot of sellers hiding behind those. And I feel that if you want a better cost for your dollar, if you're looking to buy online leads, I would focus on just getting more buyer leads, because behind those buyers are nice sellers looking to upgrade. I don't see a lot of people, the psychology behind selling property. I feel like they're looking for their replacement. They're not looking to sell their house online. They're looking for their replacement. And so if you can connect with them over what they're looking for, you'll find that they may have a property they need to sell. So that's been a big part of my my success with listings.
So unrelated to this, Alex, I think that the under 40, under 45 homeowners are now expected to be putting their properties on the market in a higher than previously anticipated pace due to work changes, people having to go back to work, and family changes with needing more or less space. So I think all of these things do tie together. I hope those of you who are on the path to platinum are connecting the dots from these conversations to what you're talking about and doing in that program. For you to be consistent with any type of business development or business growth, I think you need to be able to block 2 to 3 hours of time when you're going to be concentrated and not distracted. Okay, you need to have a safe space where you can do the activities that are going to provide the return that you want. Okay. First thing is, are you scheduling time? Are you preparing the night before? Is the environment conducive to doing business? If you're somebody that likes to stand and project your voice better, do you know exactly where you're going to stand? Is your headset ready? Is your desk clean? Do you know who you're going to be contacting? Do you have your goals and objection handling posted somewhere where it reinforces to build confidence? Are you confident in your scripts? And I hate the word scripts, but I don't hate the word scripts because, scripts are not robotic, but scripts are a framework for communication that provides a more consistent outcome. If that makes any sense, right? If you're reinventing the process every time, do you think I'm going to get the best you at every appointment, or do you think I'm going to get a random you if you don't have processes? What do you think? So, Robert, if you wing it every time and you're good, do you think it's going to be working every time, or you might forget something sometimes? What are your thoughts?
I agree with you that a script is it's like an agenda more. That's what I always viewed it as. These are the points that I know that I want to cover in the conversation, because, you can be going right along with what you say every time, and then, the seller stops you and asks you a question and puts you off your game, and you forget where you are and you forget what you've said or didn't say. So from that standpoint, I always go in knowing these are the 10 points that I must cover in this conversation, and it's worked very well. I also
Great.
just want to mention one other thing. I always try to, again, my marketplace was a higher price marketplace, as many of you have here, so that I always try to be at all the showings for my sellers. And it gave me an opportunity to meet these prospective buyers and share with them the knowledge that I had about the community. And on more times than I can count right now on my hands, when the buyer of that house came time to sell, they called me rather than their agent. So it's time well spent, I think, and I just put it out there as another method of getting buyers, sellers.
Here's a free one too, or in your name tag, right?
Right.
And more importantly, having a conversation that you're going to have when somebody approaches you. So the past 30 days, I know 2 agents in our company, one in Westfield and one in Rockaway, our New Jersey locations, that have closed 2 transactions that came from their professional network. Okay. Lead paint tester, home inspector, mortgage lender, attorney, and I'm not sure if those are the 4. There might have been one other one in that mix for the 4. But my question to you is, how many of the people that you work with in a transaction are you asking for them to refer you business? Okay, many of us feel like, oh, the home inspector knows 1,000 agents. Well, probably the 1,000 agents aren't asking for business. If you're giving them several transactions, you can say, hey, how am I doing? Am I doing something wrong? Because I haven't gotten any referrals from you, right? I haven't gotten any listings. And if you don't ask, you don't receive. Okay. And when we work and we give business to other professionals, we ought to, have a conversation strategy so that we're the top of mind when there's an opportunity to refer business. Your work environment should support your singular goal. You need to consistently follow up on opportunities. I have a lot of people that make great calls and they're supposed to follow up, but probably they don't have the structure to do the appropriate follow-up. And when you're prospecting, I think 60 to 70% of most agents' business comes after the third contact. So if you're great at, first contacts, but you don't do, 2, 3, 4 follow-ups every day, you're probably missing out on a tremendous opportunity to have more consistency in your business.
Rob,
Yeah.
my husband generated a ton of business from the neighborhood pizza place. He was a regular, every week, at least once or twice a week. And he asked the owner if he could put his magnetic business card on his register. And the guy said, sure. And people would ask the pizza guy, how come he's got that? And he says, oh, because that's my realtor. P.S. He never bought anything from my husband because he was in the same house forever. But he got a ton of business from him. It's just those little things that we forget about. When you're in a restaurant and you're having dinner, if you're going to give a nice tip, leave the tip with your business card.
Another thing is not everybody on the call maybe wears their name tag, but I would say that if you're investing in all these calls and joining us, there's nothing wrong with putting a pin, a Remax pin on you whenever you go out the door. I can't even tell you how many agents I've started conversations with at dinner that are, on vacation. They're like, oh, you're a Remax agent as well. And then it leads to a relationship and that leads to referrals. And a big thing that I see that's happening for my team right now is 3 of our new listings coming online right now are all people that bought with us during the pandemic or within the last couple of years that just bought something fast. They love the area, but it's not necessarily the right size or product. And so don't sleep on people that bought with you recently that just may not be in the right home or condo. They may need more space. They may need a bigger backyard, or they may need to move for another reason. I mean, even as recent as like a year ago, I have 2 people that one, the couple, their backs are hurting them. So they want to move to a 1 floor versus a 2 floor, or one wants to be closer to the water. So they're moving just 6 miles, west to be on the Gulf. So there's a lot of opportunity, right there as well.
Fantastic. So I'm going to go into a couple of reasons why we lose business. All right. I just want to put this in the back of your head. We lack aggressive follow-up. And I didn't say follow-up, I put aggressive follow-up because I do think follow-up needs to be aggressive. People don't want a passive agent to sell their house, because if you're not following up with your buyer or seller, you're probably not following up with the listing agent, or if you're listing a property, with the agents that are showing the property. We fail to fully understand our client's motivation. Okay, I have a lot of fun when I go meet with agents and teams and I talk about, oh, the rates are high, some of my clients are waiting. Okay, I love to talk about the 2-headed coin flip. Okay, if I had a coin and I showed it to you, it's two heads. And I said, I'm gonna flip this coin. What are you gonna call? And everybody says heads. Now, I say if you buy a house and you're concerned about interest rates, really two things can happen to interest rates. I guess they could stay flat, but there's two moves that interest rates can do. They can go up or down, right? And if so Abe, if I sold you a house and interest rates were at 7 now and they went up to 11, how would you feel, Abe, about buying a house with a 7% interest rate? You're on mute. I think so while
I
you
look at it very closely. I
so
would
you'd
take-
love that, right? And you'd probably be appreciative that I was able to get you to take action, correct?
Right.
Now let's look at the other side of the coin. You buy a house now with a 7% interest rate, and rates go down to 5%. What action do you take?
Try to look to refinance.
You refinance, right? So you save money, you have the house that you wanted, maybe even a better outcome, right? Either outcome is pretty good, right?
Correct.
And Abe, if somebody says, but why don't I just wait for the rates to drop there, Abe?
You know what? Always you act accordingly. Something comes across the table, you start acting. You don't wait around till tomorrow. There are three types of people: those who wait for things to happen, those who say, "Let's see what happened," and those turn around and say, "Oh, I missed the boat."
So, and maybe even a better way of getting that across, it might be asking some empowering questions. And I love doing this, and I can do it all day long because I believe it in my core. I remember 3 years ago when it was virtually impossible to buy a house because there was a line to get in to see it, and there were, not tens, there were 20s and 30s of offers on good, well-priced homes. So I would say to you, Abe, if we waited for rates to come down, do you think there'll be more or less people in the market to buy?
I think if it starts to drop down, there will definitely be more people.
And if there are more people looking to buy, do you think that's going to cause us to have more choices or less?
I think there'll be more choices out there.
So if there are more people, if there's 3 times the amount of buyers competing for the same number of homes, is it reasonable there might be less choices that you have because there's more buyers? And if there are more buyers out there, do you think you might have to pay more or less for a home? And if you ask them the questions that way, and you do that consistently, I feel good about somebody buying in a 7, 8, or a 5% environment because we're the only country where you can lock it in for 30 years. Okay. So we just need to know how to have that conversation to address the motivation, right?
Yes, sir.
Are you highly motivated?
I've
are
always
you-
been motivated.
Yeah, this is the generic, but are you cutting corners and assuming that you know answers to certain questions, or are you going in and asking all the pre-qualifying questions before a transaction, right? Do you take the time to do the appropriate preparation? Okay, whether that's preparing, for a listing opportunity or maybe doing a reverse engineering for a buyer. Okay, I think what we do for buyers, it leaves opportunity for improvement. Okay, and for buyers, I'm going to reverse engineer the listing opportunity and say, hey Tom, you want to buy a property in West Scottsdale or whatever the community is, for this particular price? Hope you don't mind. I just took a little time to do an analysis about how many properties are coming on, what the list to ask price is, and set the right expectation for you as a buyer, right? And let you know the feasibility of finding that house that you want. It's the reverse process of a listing appointment. Have you ever done that, Tom? You're on mute. Tom Sloan.
Yeah. Yeah,
right? And that,
in my
that,
career, yes.
that differentiates you from an order taker, right? You've been doing this for 40 years,
46.
but who's counting?
Yeah.
So, I just think, sometimes, if we're just an order taker, a door opener, we deserve to lose the client, in my opinion. For most of us, not role playing, not knowing exactly how that conversation is going to take place on either a buyer, seller, renter, whatever. Too much time on irrelevant material, too much time on rapport building about, your car is the same, your dog, whatever. Allowing the process to go off track or off script. Okay. And again, the word script does not mean robotic. It means you're following the process. Okay. It's a human process. Selling is not telling, right? Selling is not telling. Selling is asking questions. Okay. Selling is asking better questions. A lot of times we fail because we let one objection derail the process. Okay. How many parameters are there in the decision to, buy or sell? There's probably tens, if not more, if you really go deep. But allowing one objection to derail you it's quite frankly, it's sad. Okay. That one objection may be, hey, I need to interview 4 people. The one objection might be, I have a relative in the business. The one objection may be, we need more time to get it ready. Sometimes that's legitimate, and sometimes we need more time. It's just a stall. And it's a stall because they haven't had all the answers addressed appropriately to give them the confidence to move forward. We go down tangents and we get sidetracked, and then we lose focus. And then, one of the last ones I wrote down is, we get outskilled by our competitors. Okay, because no matter how good we are, there's always somebody that's a little bit better than us. At least I think there is. And that's inspiration for us to constantly improve and evolve. Okay. So those are, some reasons why we might not have the abundance and the consistency that we want. But I think, and I believe, if you invest in yourself, you have a curiosity to learn, you'll be that agent that you'd want to serve you. And that's the best confidence builder you can have. I went on to Mike Ferry's free site to give these like 12 listing or objection handling. I'm going to put these out there, and then if you have any that you want me to go over, or want to look at the scripts, we can address those. But I only want to give you a 30, 60, 90-day listing. We were thinking about a different company because X, or if you're not with Remax, they might say, we've not heard of your company. That's on his script. We'll save commission by selling it ourselves. We want to list high, and we can always come down later. We want to test the market. We want to think it over. We want to sleep on it. I have a friend in the business. Another agent said I can get more money. You haven't sold any homes in my area. What do you do to sell homes? We want you to cut your commission. And lastly, the other agent said he or she would ... So I think there's some better objections that go out there, but it's a good framework for thinking about how are you going to address a lot of these objections. Does anybody have anything that you want me to attack and have the support of your peers? What's your biggest fear? Anybody?
So I think a lot of people go into a listing appointment with all those, a lot of fear, and there's a lot of tension. And to break that tension, sometimes, you know, bringing something to the appointment that a seller wasn't expecting. Like for me, I bring an orchid, and the husband's like, "Oh, what's this?" And I'm like, "Well, this is for the wife." And it's a whole conversation starter, and it brings the whole energy down to a place where I can control the conversation and where things just begin in my favor. And knowing that I want to lead the conversation to a place I want to end up, that works for me, that always is a good goal. It's probably $20, and it's a great investment. But being prepared and role playing with agents in your office or team, so that you never have to worry about how you're going to respond to any of those questions is very important. You should always be able to know your value, to represent your value, and to combat any of those. We don't take listings at 5%. They're all at 6%. We don't sign listings for 6 months. They're 12 months. Why? Because, you know, it might take 7 months to sell, and then you've invested your marketing, you've done all your open houses, you've done all this work, and you're left with nothing. So, you know, if you know how to speak confidently, not cocky, and explain your value and explain why things are done a certain way and how your brokerage or your team operates, you know, you're going to get them to think about it and be like, okay, we get it. That would make sense. So a lot of times it's just being able to walk in with confidence and know your value and describe it in a way that makes sense for them to understand.
One of the best objectives I use out there and teach my people is when somebody says, I have a friend in the business, I come back, so how come you didn't hire your friend? And they stop to think, and it's the reason why you didn't hire your friend, because he's your friend. You don't want to mix friendship with business. That's why as an outsider, can do a job for you. If you don't like what I'm doing, you can tell me to go away, but you can't tell a friend to do that.
A lot of times agents fear going into an appointment knowing that, you know, the sellers are interviewing a couple agents. Last week I was referred a couple to meet with that had already met with an agent that sold 40 homes in their neighborhood the last 2 years. I got the listing because I was able to recognize what the other agents did when they met with the sellers, and they didn't build the relationship correctly, and they didn't show or connect with them in a deeper way. And these people just wanted somebody they wanted to work with, somebody they wanted to enjoy a conversation with. And the other people came into business. And I think that's important. I think a lot of times people forget that people work with people they enjoy being around. And if you bring it back to that, you know, it'll help you win a lot more of the time.
So, and I think we all have to have our own voice. But if I was a productive agent in the field, I would respond to that by saying, to be honest, Abe, I think all my clients have friends in the business, but let's talk about how I can help you. You know what I mean? Like everybody has their own strategy for handling that. But I would bet you virtually every transaction you've done, they have a friend in the business. You know, especially in Florida where everybody has a license.
Rob, one of the things you heard me say this many times, is the refrigerator clause. And you say to somebody, well, you know, you want so much for your property. Can you open your refrigerator? What's that got to do with it? When you look inside, well, hey, how come you're drinking Coke, not Publix or ShopRite or another market? Well, because they're on the market and they have a good reputation. Well, so let's Remax. So let's sign and let's get on with the case.
Yeah, Abe, you know, you are you're enthusiastic as day one. I appreciate that, and you make a lot of sense. So,
Rob,
yeah,
Sorry to interrupt, but one of the best things I've ever heard you say is when somebody asks you a question and you really don't want to get involved with it, how you just keep talking. Could you explain that to the group? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he has that knack.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one that comes to effect is, when somebody, we're out with one of your peers and, we go through the pricing or our cost structure and they say, wow, that's a $60,000 commission. That's a lot of money. And, I just stand there and look and I'm like, when would you like to get started marketing your house, this weekend or next? And I think sometimes we feel we need to address every comment. And to your point, Colleen, every comment doesn't deserve an answer. Okay. And what I've learned in my career is if somebody says, 30,000, 60,000, 10,000, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of commission. We're tempted to take the bait and talk about what we do to earn the commission. And I can tell you all how that goes and how that ends. They're going to say, oh, well, Joe's real estate garage says they're going to do everything plus drone photography and they only charge 1%. And then you're put in a position to try to prove something that you can't prove because you don't know, what another competitor may or may not do. So that's kind of taking the bait. It's kind of allowing them to drive the narrative. And I think if we're in control and we're the professional, we need to control the process. And, I look at, there was a client that was in here, I might have talked about this on a prior session, who I met with one of our agents here in Westfield, and the first appointment he missed, but he took a picture of something he took out of somebody's brain that was going to cause a stroke. So this is why I couldn't make it last time. And it was pretty gross. But nonetheless, I believe that this man was totally committed to, his profession of being literally a brain surgeon and saving lives. If you're a brain surgeon, you're a cardiologist, you don't want to be the second or the third best. You want to have somebody that's committed, that feels that moral commitment to helping people. And in that case, it's not just maybe your house doesn't sell or maybe you don't get top dollar. In that case, if you have a bad day, somebody's flatlining it, somebody's not here anymore. So when we take our job and we take it very seriously, people sense that, we have that moral obligation to help as many people as we can. We always need to be honest. We need to, I love to give choices where all choices land on me, right? Hey, how would you like to list it? What commission structure do you want, right? When you pick that, then basically the sale is already happening, by process. So anyway, we're hopefully we have a lot of P2Pers here, path to platinums, that will be going on. I'll take one last question if anybody has it. If not, any questions, thoughts to wrap it up? And I'll give this to you. When I'm in my travels, if you can get a listing appointment, you get me to work for you for free, call me out. I'd love to go out on an appointment with you. I'd love to play a role, make a contribution, give you a different perspective on how you might be able to communicate with people. All right. Thank you. And for everybody, we did the Remax Awards. We have a lot of people who are consistent with prior years or have actually grown their business or grown it significantly. So congratulations to you all. All right. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
See you later, Rob.
Great session, Rob. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.